By the end of this Fundrise review video, you'll know what Fundrise is, whether or not Fundrise is legit, the pros and cons to using Fundrise, what you might want to consider before investing with Fundrise, and finally a detailed look inside the Fundrise platform and my Fundrise portfolio. So let's get started now. How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. If it's your first time here, my name is Jay, and if you remember back to the beginning of the year when I posted my video on my financial and investing goals for the year, first of all, you're lying because almost no one watched that video. But if you were one of the chosen few who actually watched that video, you'll remember me talking about how I wanted to diversify my investments here in 2021, and how I wanted to get involved in more real estate investing. And today we're going to get into exactly how I chose to do that, and I'm going to review the Fundrise real estate investing platform. Now, as always on this channel, I'm going to give you a honest and fair review of the Fundrise service here. This video isn't sponsored, my links aren't affiliate links, no one is paying me a dime to say anything in this video. This is just my experience using the platform. So first of all, what is Fundrise? Fundrise is a real estate investing platform that works kind of on a crowdfunding model. They offer private eREITs, as they call them, which invest in private and commercial real estate deals all over the United States. Now, previously, investments like this were only available to accredited investors, which are people who have over $1 million of investable assets, or large private equity firms. Fundrise is taking that model and making it available to the everyday investor like you and me. So the initial question you may have with something like this is Fundrise legit or is Fundrise a scam? And I assure you, Fundrise is 100% legit. I was wary at first because before I really researched Fundrise, the model seemed to remind me a lot of the P2P, peer-to-peer lending platforms that were popular about 5 to 10 years ago, Lending Club and Prosper. I got involved with those, and the returns I actually saw were nothing like the advertised returns or the returns that all the bloggers that were writing about those things back then advertised. You can have faith in Fundrise because Fundrise pre-funds all the real estate deals they make with their own capital. That means Fundrise puts up their own money into these deals before they offer them up to you for investment. So you can have faith they're picking quality investments and quality properties around the country. Well, Fundrise manages over $1 billion in equity. They have over $150,000 individual investors just like me, and they've paid out over $100 million in dividends so far. So, how much money do you need to open a Fundrise account? Like I said, Fundrise is making private real estate investing available to smaller investors like you and me. Any US resident with $1,000 to invest can get started on Fundrise. So while you only need $1,000 to get started on Fundrise, the more you have to invest, the more options will be available to you. So let's look at Fundrise's different account types now. So if you invest $1,000, you'll have a basic account, which gives you only the most basic investment types on Fundrise, but you will be able to reinvest your dividends, and you can set up auto investments of any amount you want after that. So only your initial investment has to be $1,000. Now, if you have slightly more money and you invest $5,000, which actually tends to be the average size of investment into Fundrise, your account will be what's called their core account. Now, with the core account, you get everything the basic plan has, but you get access to more private eREITs, as they call them, and the ability to customize your investing strategy through their 3 main investment types they'll offer to you. We'll look at those in more detail a little bit later, but you'll have the option of a long-term growth strategy, a supplemental income strategy, or a balanced investing strategy, which lands somewhere in between those two. So once your account reaches the $10,000 range, it becomes their advanced portfolio, which again, you get all of the previous features, but at $10,000, you get the benefit of having more investment options open to you, more funds available to you, and you have the options to directly invest into certain funds with the advanced account. So now before we dig too much into the Fundrise website here, let's just quickly go over why you might want to invest with Fundrise. Now, if you're like me and are totally incapable of doing any home repairs yourself, Fundrise gives you access, lets you own actual property without being on the hook for all the maintenance or the rental issues or finding tenants and dealing with tenants, all of that BS that comes with an actual rental property, you don't have to deal with on a platform like Fundrise. Now, the next question may be, well, why don't I just invest in REITs through the stock market? Like a REIT index fund or an individual REIT. And I think Fundrise has the advantage over those publicly traded REITs because you can't trade Fundrise shares. Fundrise is totally disconnected from the stock market. So even though when you're investing in REITs through your brokerage account or through an index fund, yes, you are getting exposure to the real estate market. Because those are so liquid and trade on the stock exchanges, a lot of times they still move pretty much in step with the stock market. So to disconnect from that and really diversify into real estate, I chose to go with Fundrise. Now, an important point here, when you invest with Fundrise, you have to invest for a minimum term of 5 years before you can withdraw your money without having to pay any fees or anything like that. That's because they want to encourage long-term investing. And I've seen a lot of people mention this as a negative, that, oh, your money is tied up for 5 years in Fundrise. I view that as a positive to Fundrise because I'm viewing Fundrise as an alternative to going out and buying physical property and getting a mortgage and all that kind of stuff. So if I were to go out and buy a duplex or a rental property, my principal would be tied up in there for much longer than 5 years. It would be viewed as a long-term investment. And I'm using Fundrise the exact same way. So now let's compare Fundrise's 3 main investment plans. So like I mentioned before, we have the supplemental income plan, the balanced investing plan, and the long-term growth plan. You can see supplemental income is more focused on dividends and cash flow, whereas long-term growth is more focused on price appreciation over the long term. They give you little graphs here about how your investment may play out over time, how you can expect the returns, and how your portfolio will be allocated between income investments and price appreciation investments. So now let's look at the details of the balanced investing plan here. And I really like how Fundrise shows you all this stuff. So this is their mix of price appreciation and growth. You can see there's 27 active projects or investments that are part of this plan. They tell you what kinds of properties that you'll invest in, how they improve those properties, and how you get the returns. And then they show you an example of a completed project down here and some examples of investments that are part of this plan. You can see what they are and where they're located. So now you've got a bit of an idea of what Fundrise is all about and what their investing plans look like. But now let's get to the important stuff. What kind of returns can you expect with Fundrise? And what are Fundrise's fees like? So we're lucky enough that Fundrise just put out their 2020 year-end letter to investors about the performance of the Fundrise funds over the course of the year 2020. And they were so kind as to compare the Fundrise investments to 2 of my favorite investments, VTI, Vanguard's Total Stock Market Index Fund, and VNQ, which is Vanguard's REIT Index Fund. Both of those are things I invest in as part of my 4-fund portfolio. So it's great to have that direct comparison for me of things I'm already investing in versus Fundrise. So you can see VTI, the total stock market ETF, returned almost 21% in 2020, but VNQ, the REIT index fund, lost nearly 5%. And as a holder of that, I can tell you that's true. I was not happy with the performance of VNQ last year. But the Fundrise funds, like I mentioned, these are private real estate investments. They're not tied to the stock market. So Fundrise's funds were able to return about 7.5% in 2020. So obviously, real estate is not going to grow as fast as the stock market, especially in the economy we've been in. So it underperformed the stock market, but it vastly outperformed the public REITs that you can invest in. Then further on down in their letter, now you can see they even compare their Fundrise investments versus that Vanguard Total Stock Market ETF, VTI, and the Real Estate ETF, VNQ. They give you the year-over-year comparison between those, which I really love. Annualized average from 2014 to 2020, Fundrise is returning a little over 10% over that time frame compared to 12.74% for the Vanguard Total Stock Market ETF and just over 8% for the public REIT index fund. So while obviously on any given year this could change, really Fundrise seems to be hitting that sweet spot in between the stock market and a REIT index fund. They seem to be outperforming the REIT index fund most years. So that gives you a pretty good idea of the returns that you can expect from Fundrise, at least over the past 6 years. Now let's take a look at the fees that Fundrise charges. Because if you know me, one of the reasons I like those Vanguard funds so much is because of the extremely low fees. So Fundrise gives you their fees right in their FAQ. They charge 0.15% in annual advisory fees. That's their management fee for running their platform and all that kind of stuff. They don't charge transaction fees or commissions. Now they go on to say the funds charge a 0.85% annual fee to manage their portfolios of real estate. Like I said, these are privately managed investments. The Fundrise team is actually going out and purchasing these properties or these apartment complexes and all these kind of things. So obviously there's going to be fees associated with that. I think keeping it under 1% there, or it looks combined, you're paying a 1% fee to invest with Fundrise. That's obviously not as good as a Vanguard index fund, but for an actively managed portfolio, something private like this, I think 1% is pretty darn good. Okay, so now we got all the technical stuff out of the way. Let's get to the good stuff. Let's dive into my Fundrise portfolio. Okay, so here we are. When you log in, this is the main Fundrise dashboard. You can see I started investing at the end of the year since December 2020. So I don't have a whole lot of data on my personal return or things like that yet. You can see I chose the supplemental income plan as my investing plan for this. I didn't go with the long-term growth or the balance fund because I really wanted to focus on cash flow for this. I'm using this to diversify from the stock market, and most of my stock market investments are for long-term growth. So with my real estate here, I wanted to focus a little more on income. That's why I chose that. But obviously, if you end up investing with Fundrise, you'll choose what's best for you. Now you can see right off here to the left, they show your account returns. So far, just in 2021, we're not even through the first quarter yet as I record this. I've made over $40 in dividends from my Fundrise account. And then the graph of my account here, you can see I initially opened my account with $5,000 so I could get into that core account, that core level account. And then after a little while, the more I poked around, I realized Fundrise was legit. I liked this. I was going to continue with this. So I threw in another $5,000. So now I've invested $10,000 of my own money into Fundrise. So like I said, I'm giving you this review from my experience here with $10,000. No one's paying me to do this. Now scroll down a little bit, you can see my portfolio, how it's broken down between income properties, value add properties, which are properties they fix up to add value to and then resell, and then opportunistic properties, which are the high growth, high return investments they might have. And here they give you kind of a feed on what's been going on in your portfolio, and we're going to get to some things I really like in here as I scroll down. So right here, right off the bat, you can see one of your projects completed successfully on February 26th. It says, exit update, LA land entitlement project pays back successfully. So this was a real estate project that one of the Fundrise funds I invest in owned. That investment totally paid back. It was probably a debt investment. It was a $6.5 million investment. And if I click into this little notification here, it says the project generated an annualized return of 8% for the investors. It was part of this income eREIT 2, which is their their second eREIT focused on income. And then it just tells you a little bit about the project. It started in December 2019. Fundrise gave a $6.5 million loan for a 53,000 square foot property in Toluca Lake, California. And the borrower of that money successfully executed on whatever they're going to do with this property, paid it back. And that works out for us as investors. So they tell you a little bit about the project, what went on, about how this project affects your portfolio. So I really like that they give you updates like this on the individual properties that these funds own. So now we'll go back to my feed on the homepage here. And the next update they give me is another one I really like. Your portfolio has acquired a new project. So anytime one of the Fundrise eREITs that I'm invested in acquires a new property, I get a little update like this. So let's click into this. New acquisition, rental home community near Dallas, Texas. So they give you here the byline to this. This investment fits into our broader strategy to invest in affordably priced rental housing across the Sun Belt. So it looks like this is a 10 brand new homes project. It says they've invested $2.3 million to acquire the first phase of Crestridge Meadows, a 98-unit single-family rental home community in Lavon, Texas, part of the greater Dallas-Fort Worth area. Then they talk a little bit about their strategy for these kind of investments. They give you the risk profile, which they say risk return is moderate to high on this. And then if you scroll down further, they give you the business plan on what this project entails, what it's like. And then further on down, why we invested. And what I really like, other than they alert you and give you all this detail on why they invested into the properties, is you can even go deeper. So let's click here on more about this project. All right, so I can click into this. I can kind of dig into this project if I really want to myself. So Crestridge Meadows, 10 new homes, investment size for Fundrise was $2.3 million. Gives a little bit about their market analysis on the Sun Belt region of the southern United States. And then down here at the bottom, it gives which of Fundrise's funds are invested in this project. So 90% of the investment was from their interval fund, which is their main investment fund that the bulk of everyone's investments start out in. And then their growth eREIT has 10% of this project as part of its portfolio. Then they give you the timeline on how they think things will play out, and if there's any changes, you can look right in there. If we go back up to the top, we can look at the map. Yeah, so right here with the map, I can look in, I can see exactly where this project is. This is real property right here on County Road 484 in Lavon, Texas. So when I invest in a REIT index fund like VNQ, I have no idea where the properties that anything in that index fund are invested in. And even like in my $0 to $100,000 dividend portfolio, I invest in Realty Income. I really don't know exactly what properties they are invested in or own. Now we click over into the portfolio tab and you can see the positions that I am invested in through my Fundrise portfolio. Now, how these got allocated is because I just chose their supplemental income investment style plan. So that's how it's investing it for me. I haven't directly invested into anything. So the interval fund is Fundrise's, it's fairly new. I think they just created this for 2021. They're basically their core holding. So no matter which plan you pick, your core holding is going to be this interval fund. And you can see just about 41% of my portfolio is in that fund. So now I can click into any of these and see exactly what projects they hold, go down into the detail I was just showing you. But if I scroll down, I can see that through these through these 5 funds I'm invested in here through Fundrise, I own parts of 41 active real estate projects. And I can go through every single project that my money is invested in here, all in that detail I just showed you with that property in Texas here. So I love the transparency. I love being able to see exactly what I'm invested in. I love the updates on when things get paid back. So that's why I decided to bump my portfolio up from $5,000 to $10,000, because after I got in here and saw what it was all about, I loved it. I decided this was for me. So now I think I've gushed about what I like about Fundrise a bit too much so far in this video. So let's get to what I don't like about Fundrise and some of the cons to investing in the Fundrise portfolio. And the first con, the thing that frustrates me the most, is I can't invest directly into the funds I want to. Even now that I've bumped my account up to the $10,000 and I have the advanced account, I haven't been able to figure out how to pick and choose the funds I'm invested in. Like you saw, part of my portfolio was in a West Coast eREIT that they have. I'd like to have the option where if I wanted to invest in an eREIT focused on, say, the Midwest of the United States or the Northeast of the United States, to be able to pick that for myself. And maybe I can, and I just haven't figured it out yet, or maybe that's only available to account levels higher than mine, but that's something I would really love to see, and something that is kind of bugging me so far about my Fundrise portfolio. The second con with investing in Fundrise is your gains, even your dividends from those eREITs, they're taxed as income. So your gains and your dividends from investing in Fundrise are going to be taxed like ordinary income, like your 9-to-5 job or whatever. It's not like when you invest in a dividend stock, the dividends you get from that stock are qualified dividends and taxed at a much lower rate. I think it's like 15% or something like that. So your Fundrise investments aren't going to be as tax friendly as some stock market investments and some other types of investments out there. And the last con I'll bring up about Fundrise is you can't use leverage to your advantage in the same way that you can with physical property. If I were to go out and buy a rental property, a house, I would get a mortgage for that house. I'd have to put down, what, 20%. So for $40,000 of initial investment, I can completely own a $200,000 rental property, and all of the rental income coming off it is directly on mine. I don't have to share it with anybody, and I can do all that for just $40,000. Whereas if I invest $40,000 in Fundrise, my returns are going to be what you would expect on a $40,000 investment. My net worth still is only that $40,000. I don't get to add in that $200,000 property that I could then just go and flip or sell or whatever. And again, I'll just throw it in here. I mentioned it as a positive because of my outlook on Fundrise and how I invest with it. But because your principal is locked up for that 5 years in these investments, Fundrise is a long-term investment. It's not like a stock or even the publicly traded REITs on the stock market. You can't get in and out quick. You can't buy it today, sell it in a week or a month. So if you're going to invest in Fundrise, realize it's a long-term thing. Now, if this video has been giving you any value, if it's been helping you decide if Fundrise is right for you, please give it a big thumbs up. That really helps out the channel. Like I said, I'm not being paid for this. This is my opinion. I'm doing this to help you guys, so I'd appreciate if you'd hit that like button down there. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Got to get all my plugs in here. Let me know if you have any other questions about Fundrise down in the comments. I'll be happy to answer any questions anyone has. And check out these two videos over here. They will help make you better with your money and become a better investor. I hope to see you there. I hope you enjoyed this.